Today I've been pondering the word doubt, as well as the feeling of doubt. Doubt as an obstacle that stands in the way so often of purpose, analysis, paralysis. And what I did was I traced the etymology of doubt. And I traced it to the word doubten, if that's how you pronounce it, whatever language that was. And there is a root in that word meaning to dread, to fear, to be afraid. So that doubt as a primary obstacle that stands in the way of purpose, that stands in the way of becoming your purpose, of making a choice and having clear direction, and thus embodying purpose. Doubt comes from fear and dread. Now, another etymological root, another ancestral, living, breathing trace of the conscious origin of the word doubt is duo, D-W-O, meaning two, and specifically two minds, undecided between two things. So doubt is connected to our fear, to our paralysis, to our dread, in face of bifurcation, in face of dyads of possibility, requiring the responsibility of choice, of action. Choices are not made for us unless we allow someone to make the choice for us. We have free will. And so with free will, we feel our fear, we feel our doubts, we feel the potentiality of our purpose, we feel the responsibility and the promise of our purpose. And we are asked to choose it. Our purpose is not merely given to us like these beautiful flowers, or like the animals, or like the rest of the natural world. These things are just innately encoded with purpose, and they act it out, and they become their purpose innately, without any separation, without any hesitation, without any doubt, without any fear. Now maybe the animals fear, but the flowers do not fear. Maybe they do. I actually pondered once in a poem, and then I'll get back on track, though this is the pathway revealing itself, that flowers in the wintertime, given that they are aware and they are conscious, and it just gets dark and cold, and they are the seedlings under the earth, and I wonder if they're like trembling and shivering and cold and like, oh my goodness, am I going to die? Is this the end? Is the world never going to come to life again? And you've had those moments, as I'm sure, as I have, where it just feels like, oh my God, it's over. My life is done. I am dead. There will never again be truth, freedom, God, divinity. This is it. And then you get over your little tantrum. You get over the existential pain. You get over the existential dread. You get over the existential doubt. And in just a few days, a beautiful day comes about. And springtime blooms once again. And we oscillate out of fear and into love. If doubt comes from fear, and doubt emerges from fear in the face of bifurcation, of the exploration of parallel possibilities that open up as we try to discover our purpose through action, then in face of doubt, we must not only make a choice, but we must have the existential courage to have a choice, to make a choice. Now, the fear in face of bifurcation is related to the doubt, to the fear of making a wrong decision, likely as a wrong decision that will lead us to death, to destruction, to detachment, to disconnection. Now, in my writing this morning, I got into doubt in its relation to the bifurcation between good and evil that happened when we ate the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden. Doubt itself, the dichotomization of reality and the possibility of making a wrong choice that brings us away from God rather than back to Him. This is one of the primordial sources of our deepest fears. This is one of our primordial anxieties. And so we doubt. And when we doubt, we are choosing fear, instead of simply allowing inspiration, passion, pathos, purpose to seamlessly, courageously become the pathway. And maybe there's a multiplicity of pathways that open up. And out of fear and out of doubts, we don't know which one to choose. And this is where it takes an act of courage to just choose one and say, I'm not exactly sure what this is going to look like. I'm not exactly sure if this is the right choice of all the possibilities that are available to my free will. With my reason and my intuition, with my mind and with my heart, I do my best. And with my prayer, I do my best to be guided on the proper path. But there's no way to know if it's going to be the proper path unless you walk it. And now the primary problem that we are exploring, that I'm exploring, of doubt is not even necessarily concerned with the pathways themselves, but with doubt itself and fear itself becoming the pathway itself through the prevention of ever choosing a pathway. Does that make sense? When doubt and when fear become our paralysis, then they become the pathway itself. And every single path that we walk towards purpose or towards purposelessness is beclouded by something of a cloud of fear. Every single piece of the world that we interpret, that we perceive, is going to be absorbed, perceived through the perceptive lens of fear. We do not see the world as it is in itself. We see the world through the lens of our fear and of our doubt. I have here in my writing a phrase that came through, which is doubt is debt, is death. There's a phonetic similarity between these three words, and they are connected. Doubt refers to fear, refers to dread. Debt can be perceived as this karmic inheritance of obligations, of responsibilities. And we can think of the karmic debt of inheritance of sin, which is death. Which is not just death as in the death of the body, but the primordial death of corruption, of wickedness, of detachment from God. So doubt is a form of debt. And what is debt in our world? Debt is slavery. Debt is servitude, ironically, to forces that begin with a Z, that are connected to this primordial fall. They wrote that book, or at least their fingers are in it, their fingerprints, their claws. And I'm not referring to people. I'm referring to powers and principalities here. Manifestation of my doubt speaking itself here. Debt, servitude, and death. Capitalism as a system of living death. When people are so entrapped in self-paralyzing doubts, fear of death, which create mass concretizations, systems, cities, built around the avoidance of confrontation with fear and death, to remain within the comfort of pleasure, of not confronting the obligation of taking responsibility for your own life, of making a choice, of choosing your purpose, of choosing the purposeful pathway that you are, and thus letting people extract the capital of yourself, the capital S of your capital S self, from you, as you let them make choices for you, when you give them your currency, not just the currency of your money and debt, but the currency of your soul, of your time, of your energy, of your creative essence, of your likeness to God. Doubt is when, in face of fear, in face of existential dread and paralysis, you choose to remain entrapped in the familiarity of the illusion, rather than taking a leap of faith. Faith in God, faith in soul, faith in purpose, into the mystery of the unknown, into the mystery and the terror of confronting your own fear and your own mortality and your own death. Faith in the illusory nature of that death, and then the eternality of your soul, which has been breathed into your heart, into your body, into your being, into your mind by God. Existential doubt requires existential courage. We know what doubt is. Doubt is fear, is dread, is debt, is death, is perpetual servitude to the creation of this system of capital punishment, which is self-doubting, self-imposed death, outwardly projected into concretized systems, which are cities, built around the avoidance of fear, the avoidance of death, the avoidance of unpredictability, and the avoidance of choice. The remedy to that existential doubt is existential courage. which requires existential faith. Courage to confront the parts of yourself which contain your deepest fears, your deepest wounds, your deepest pains, your deepest doubts in face of responsibility, of your requirement as a human being. You have no other choice than to make a choice. And so courage is leaping into those uncomfortable places which prevent the choice from making itself, is leaping into confrontation of mortality, death, doubt, debt, all of it, your karmic debts, your karma, your deepest pains, and confronting that, having the courage to go there with the faith that God is protecting you no matter what, that God is holding you through it, that God is guiding you through it. And that your primordial calling is there for a reason. Your primordial passion is there for a reason. It is your compass. It is your guide. It is meant to form a pathway of life in face of death, in face of your mortality, in face of your finitude, to breathe some of your eternal essence into the world, that it may bloom like a flower, in face of the impermanence of your being, to say, well, I am, and I am love, and I am self-expressive joy, and I am free, and I am freedom, and I am passion, and I am purpose. And I am love. Because if doubt is fear, then one of the antitheses of doubt is love. And what this looks like is to fall in love with the process of your unfurling, of your becoming, of the messiness of life, of the messiness of the fucking tears that have to pour from your cheeks as you go to the tenebrous depths of your own soul, having hidden itself under layers of existential dread and shame and inheritance of debt and sin and wickedness and evils that your ancestors have perpetrated, in search of the avoidance of their own fears, of their own pain. To fall in love with the process of inner confrontation that becomes a living prayer to bring us closer to God. Because all of this purposeful action, discovery of purpose, confrontation of doubts and deaths and debt, is all to shed the layers of what stands in the way of your connection to God. And to reclaim that eternal connection and to make it embodied, so that all of the illusions that are rooted in doubt, and I'm speaking in the microcosm of your own life, all the illusions that doubt and fear create in your life, but also the doubt and fear create in the grand ripples of like living in this fucking self-siphoning world that is just so rooted in extraction and war and deceit and evil and vice and all this fucking vicious crying out for help. We do this to reconnect ourselves with God, so that our own ripples can be more divine, more in the likeness of the image of God, and not of the image of God, but of God himself, that we may be vessels for God's will. And every shedding of layer allows for the ripples of our faithful, prayerful will becoming a more harmonious and healed world. Now, doubt, I also mentioned, comes from the word duo, two. two minds having to make a choice. And duality is the initial separation of wholeness, of oneness, where another antithesis of doubt in the etymological tracing, and if you trace the word healing etymologically, it comes from wholeness. So healing our doubts, which comes from the bifurcation, which comes from the dyad, which comes from two instead of one. The healing is to bring the dyad into wholeness, into coherence, into healing, to restore the oneness between humanity and God, to restore the oneness between every aspect of our world and God, to restore the oneness as the stewards of this realm. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but in the Bible it says that we are to have dominion over the other animals. And if we look at our world, and I'm not saying that we should have dominion, I'm not necessarily expressing agreement with this, but if we look at humans and we compare them to the rest of the animals on Earth, like we're pretty notably different. We're kind of the ones who are the most misaligned. We are the ones who have to face this doubt, this excruciating pain of doubt, and not seamlessly allowing God to make our choices for us. More so paralyzed by overthinking and fear and fallenness and all that. Where we have the potency and the power of making the choice so that the presencing of our connection with God in being chosen, in being willfully, freely chosen, as opposed to just chosen and given by God. When we make that choice in face of the potentialities of separation and of evil and of bifurcation and of separating ourselves, we still choose wholeness. We still choose integration. We still choose reunion with God, and that strengthens our bond with God. And thus that strengthens our stewardship of the earth, our caring for the world that holds us as mother. Which takes me there's another layer that I want to add, and I'm pondering if I want to add it. Yeah. The last layer of doubt that I want to express is to relate all of this to Cartesian doubt. René Descartes, in the 16th, 17th century, entered into a discourse of metaphysical doubt, wherein he uncovered this idea that I think, therefore I am. Now, if you don't know anything about Cartesianism, I don't feel like explaining it in such depth right now, but what I will say is, by the process of doubting his own existence, of doubting the reality of his surroundings, of asking, like, what is the one thing that I cannot doubt in order to be certain about who I am, about selfhood, about identity. And Descartes essentially said that you could doubt the entire physical world. You could doubt your own suffering because you have dreams where you're dreaming that you're suffering, but then you wake up and the suffering wasn't real. And the continuum that he chose to perceive was, I think, therefore I am. The supremacy of the thinking mind, which itself, in its ability to doubt and to ponder the bifurcations of doubt, is within the realm of doubt and duality. And so Descartes brought the idea of Cartesian dualism to our world, where we are thinking rational subjects, and the outer world is just a unthinking, unbreathing, unliving, dead machine. Cartesian mechanistic worldview, where the world is just like these clockwork gears turning on themselves, and they are fully dictated by material causality. And now, again, I don't want to get too deep on this, especially because it's like coming from mind, and it's coming from the times when I was studying philosophy in college and I was so in the realm of fucking intellectualism. Nevertheless, this idea of doubt and of the proliferation of doubt into macrocosmic structures of our world. We live in a paradigm of scientific materialism. And scientific materialism is axiomatically rooted in Cartesianism, in Cartesian dualism, in Cartesian supremacy of reason over the world, which is turned into this empty mechanistic machine. And the scientific materialists of our day are still deeply dominated by this paradigm. And not only that, but linguistics itself, etymology itself, which is what I'm beginning to explore, is also within the inheritance of that doubt, of that Cartesianism, of that mechanization of the world that divorces the world itself from its own spirit, that divorces the mind and the body from God. Which is to say, the scientific materialistic paradigm is fundamentally rooted in doubt. For any hypothesis to become acceptable knowledge, you have to be able to challenge it, to doubt it. Any hypothesis is not actually full knowledge. There is always the possibility that it could be negated. Now, scientific materialism as a paradigm is literally fundamentally rooted in doubt, because it's fundamentally rooted in the scientific method, which is based on hypotheses. And it literally makes our world hypothetical rather than real. Instead of the living, breathing, tangible experience of reality, of experience, science puts that experience into doubt and hypotheticalizes it, makes it hypothetical. So that our entire world, which is built on scientific materialism, cities, structures, governments, technocracies, all of these are hypotheticals that try to materialize themselves, but are just detached from the reality of tangible experience, which is self-evident. Scientific materialism is just the doubt of our own self-paralyzing minds, proliferated into paradigms that try to seek understanding of a world that is already understood innately by the heart. We do not need these confinements and categories and structures and even words to define the human experience, to confine the human experience. The experience simply expresses itself. And this is doubtless. And this is purposeful. And it's about having the courage to dispel the illusions of false hypotheses and hypothetical structures and hypothetical syllogisms that try to entrap our world and our minds and our hearts and our souls and our living, breathing, wild animal bodies to doubt, to dubitability. Dubit, ability, doubt, fear, death, debt, ability, the power, the capacity to act, dubitability. This is the passion that I am following into my purpose, and I'm having a blast with it. And I could nerd out about this for days. So it's a very fun and fine line to explore. My vehement passion against hypothetical categories that try to confine reality, while also dancing with the words themselves, which are inherently dyads and bifurcations that also categorize reality. So I am looking from the place of doubt, from the place of separation and categorization and linguistic expression, to liberate, to free, to expel and express through the medium of lived experience, such that the words become not merely separation, but whole living breaths. A focus on linguistic theory, on etymology, as the lived experience of the word, the lived aspect, the breathed aspect of the word, not merely written, but spoken aloud, the oral sensation of a child coming out of the womb and crying before words are even a thing, the expression that is phonetic, the voice begins with pathos. Pathos, the pathway of purpose. Anyway, that refers to another piece of writing which I embarked on, which reveals itself to me, which I won't get into now because otherwise we're in for another 30 minutes. So I'll have to do another video about that some other time. I'm gonna leave it at that. Yeah, and I will end by saying that in the description of this bio or whatever, of this video, there will be a link to my Substack where I'm posting my writing, which is like all this stuff that I talked about here. I wrote about it this morning and it just came through. And that's where there's the prosaic, artistic language exploration. And yeah, it's astrotheosis.substack.com. I'm going to be posting a lot of writing related to this etymological exploration of breath there. And how it works is it's free unless you decide that you want to be a paying member. But you get the free prose blog sent directly to your email. And if you want to use the app, the Substack app, it's like social media for writers. So find me on Substack. If you are abundant and you feel like supporting me there, then that would be beautiful, because I am discovering that this purposeful pathway, I have no other choice than to make it my career, than to make it the source of my abundance. It already energetically is my abundance. It's when I come to life. And so I am going to figure out ways to make that my way of acquiring monetary currency in a world where monetary currency is required to survive. So that last 2 minutes was me learning to be shameless in my self-promotion. But also, it's completely free. You don't have to pay anything. And you will get my writing sent to your email. So, if you made it this far, thank you. I love you. And we'll leave it at that for now. Many blessings to you, ocean blessings, and may all doubts and illusions be dispelled by God, by truth, by existential courage, and by love. Thank you.